Hey everybody, welcome back to the Unchoreographed podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jenna Lower, and this week I have a super special podcast episode for you guys. I'm talking to one of my clients. Her name is Elsie. She just wrapped up our 12-week group program called the Hip Lab VIP, and I really wanted to record this episode with her so that she had a chance to share what amazing results she had over the course of the past 12 weeks. This is somebody who was really struggling and frustrated when I first met her a couple weeks ago, and in just 3 months' time, she has completely blown it out of the water. She is back doing everything that she wanted to and more, and I really wanted to be able to share her story with you guys who might be out there wondering if, just like she was wondering, is there still hope for me? Will I ever be able to do the things that I love again? And instead of me telling you that it's possible, I want you to hear it firsthand from one of my clients about all the amazing things that she's doing to try to help give you guys a little bit more hope and know that there is so much that you can do for this. So I hope that you guys love today's episode, and here we go. All right. Well, Elsie, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited to have you share your story with people who might be struggling right now, because you had some really great results and you've had a really drastic change over the past 12 weeks. So I'm excited to share your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. All right. So why don't you just kind of take me back to where you were before the two of us started working together. What did life look like for you? What was kind of the symptoms that you were experiencing and all of that?
Yeah, so initially I was diagnosed with a labral tear in my left hip back in 2021, which was from probably an overload of a running injury to start with. And I kind of saw a few different physios and tried a lot of different things, and it was okay. It was kind of manageable, but it would flare up kind of once a year for maybe 2 or 3 months, and it would settle back down again, and then we'd go through the whole cycle again. But then for some reason last year in October, the flare up was really, really bad. The worst one, like the symptoms were pretty much exactly the same as the symptoms I had when it was initially diagnosed, and it just wasn't getting any better. So I was seeing my regular physio and nothing was helping. My entire hip was completely locked up. I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand, I couldn't run, I couldn't basically do anything. And it was getting to a point where it was impacting my everyday, where I'd wake up and not know if I'd be able to stand on one leg or if I could even walk from my bed to the bathroom or from go out and about and go about my daily life. It was just so unpredictable, which really started to like wear me down quite a lot, to a point where it was like, I don't know what else to do now. I'm out of options. They weren't suggesting to go and have surgery or anything like that, but it was just at a point where I was stuck. I didn't know where to go next. And that's where I stumbled upon your podcast and just started deep diving into who you were and the stuff that you were doing. And yeah, kind of went from there.
What I think, I often talk to women who, like, when we do the assessment, it's like, okay, what are the symptoms you're having? What are you feeling in your hip? But often what it turns more into is the discussion of like what's happening mentally. Because the physical
Mm.
symptoms are one side of it, but I think what often impacts people even more are what's going on the mental side of it. So what was that like for you, like emotionally? What were you going through?
Yeah, definitely an emotional roller coaster. It was quite up and down. I'm quite an active person, which for me is kind of like a bit of an outlet as well. It's my kind of like my safe space is going for a run or going to the gym, just keeping active. So when that's removed, everything starts to kind of degrade quite quickly, especially when it's like you don't actually realize how important your hips are for pretty much everything. So as soon as as soon as that starts to go and it flares up and it gets to a point where I can't even walk properly or I don't feel stable on my own 2 feet, uh, it really impacted me quite a lot, because just that unpredictability, and then it just shifted to it always being on my mind, unsure of where it was going to go or if it was going to get better or the questions of, is this my life now, started to appear as well.
Mm, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I feel like once it starts impacting you in a way that like I stopped wanting to go out with my friends. Like it's almost like it starts to impact you like even on that social level of like, well, when I'm really active, but all my friends go do these really active things, can I even go do those things? And I think it just
Yeah,
wears on
exactly.
people in ways you don't even realize
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. Like you just start not being able to go and do the things that you've always done. You can't go and see your friends who want to go for a walk along the coast, or go for a hike in the bushland. Like you just can't physically can't do those things. And then you just start becoming more and more of a hermit and staying at home. And then it's just this continuous cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, super frustrating.
Yeah.
Really frustrating cycle.
Yeah.
Had you done any, like, I guess what had you tried for it up until the point like before we started? You had done some physiotherapy, I think, right?
Yeah. So I'd seen two different physios who had kind of done like specific labral tear rehabilitation, which kind of helped, like a little bit of manual therapy, mostly exercises, but it was always the same like group of exercises, which would kind of settle it down, and then it would be okay for a little while. Um, I had a couple of MRIs, had an ultrasound done as well. Was planning to get a cortisone injection a few years ago, but that never happened because everything settled down. But it just never felt like it was enough. That it always felt like there was a little bit left that we never kind of resolved. Always felt, okay, we've got to a point where I can do the things that I want to do again, but I feel like we haven't solved the problem.
Mm,
So kind of
yeah,
like just putting another band-aid on top of the wound kind of scenario. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, that makes total sense. So it's a big jump to go from working with somebody in person to doing something virtual. So what made you feel like this was the next step that you wanted to take? Like, was there something that stood out that was different for you? Or because I think a lot of people can be skeptical, like, does it work virtually?
Yeah, I think I was kind of at a point where I was run out of options. I tried the in-person therapy. I tried basically everything. Everyone goes into that little Google search to kind of figure out, where do I go to now? And I was like, surely there has to be other people who are dealing with this problem as well. Like I can't be the only person. So I started looking. I just started searching on podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I just searched up label tear or something on Apple Podcasts, and then or even Spotify. I think I can't remember. And your podcast popped up, so I started listening, and I was like, oh, she sounds like she knows what she's talking about. So I just started researching and looking up your Instagram account, and looking at all the information that you were posting, and the people that you were helping, and it for me it kind of like attracted me to want to find out more, and see if this might be the next step, the next option. And I didn't really think about too much into it being a virtual kind of rehabilitation versus in person, because I was stuck with the in person stuff. I was at a point where it wasn't going any further. So for me, it was, well, we might as well try it. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I feel like that right there is like this story that I hear from so many people. It's like they just are stuck. And honestly, it's why I went online because you're so limited to like only being able to help the people in your immediate area, but there's so
yeah,
many more people out there that are
yeah,
going through
exactly.
this. So yeah, I'm glad that the podcast was able to reach you and we were able to work together. That's for sure. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, so now that you've gone so you joined the group program,
yeah,
which originally was 8 weeks. We ended up extending it out to 12 weeks because it was going so well and you guys were getting such
yeah.
good results, which was fabulous. So, after going through that program now, can you just give people a little insider view of like what was it like to go through that process for you?
Yeah, so as you said, we did the group program, so there was like maybe three or four of us all together, which was nice. Like that was, I think, a much better approach than trying to do it one on one, because you've got that community. You can build you can learn about other people's stories and go, oh, actually, these people are feeling the same symptoms that I'm feeling. They're experiencing exactly the same hip lock, exactly the same pain in your glutes, like it's all exactly or quite similar. So it was kind of like we're all in this together kind of feeling. And then it was, for me, I think the best bit was going all the way back to the start of how does the hip joint work? Why do you get these injuries? Where does it come from? And how does that fit into your story and into your kind of hip injury that you've experienced? Because no one had ever explained that to me before. And I think I've said that multiple times throughout the whole program was, I've had this diagnosed for a few years now, and no one's explained how it happened or how this injury happens. What causes hip impingement? Like yeah, it was just for me, that was probably the best part, was really understanding and learning how the hip moves, how it works, how these injuries even come about. And then it all started to make sense. I'm quite a need to know how things work kind of person. So for me, that was exactly the right approach from the start. So, and then, yeah, just progressing on that. And even though you're starting with really basic calming exercises, breathing and kind of mindfulness stuff to kind of get in tune with your body, I think that's really beneficial as well, because even now, if I feel even a little bit of pain, I jump straight to that. That's the first thing I go to, and it just settles everything down. Yeah, and then from there, just started building on the exercises and the movements and really understanding like what flares it up, what doesn't, what makes it feel better, what makes it feel worse, um, which I think has basically put so many new tools in my toolbox to be able to tackle this for hopefully the rest of time.
Right? That's cool.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy? Like this always it blows my mind that like this is pretty standard where like when you go into physio or whatever for this type of injury that like nobody explains anything. And
Oh,
it blows
it's
my mind
fine.
that like people deal with this for years before and then they find me and they're like, "Oh wow. That's what's happening." And I'm like, "How has nobody ever told you this before?" Like it
Yeah.
still surprises me when I hear that, but yet I hear that from pretty much everybody. Um
Yeah, it's insane.
it really is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it
And
just doesn't make sense that you wouldn't explain how it works. Like, how did you get this injury? Like it's a little bit more complex than say if you broke a bone, like you can probably by yourself decipher how that happened. But something so complicated and involving such big muscle groups, you'd think that they would kind of explain, hey, this is how this works and this is how this has happened for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And how powerful it ends up being, like you kind of mentioned, having those tools. Like the cool thing about this is that it's not just a list of exercises, right? Like the exercises are a piece of it, but it's more the education of
Yeah,
understanding
exactly.
your body, because you'll nobody can ever take that away from you now. So you're always going to have that in the back of your mind. You're always going to understand your hip a little bit better, and then you're going to have all those things to fall back on, the breathing and the exercises and the things we layer on top of it. But I think it's like once you learn those tools, they're yours forever, and that is so
Yeah.
much more powerful than walking through 12 weeks of rehab and then just getting discharged. It's not the same,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. No, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what it feels like. Like as I was saying, that the previous PT that I was doing was exactly that. You just get this bunch of exercises, and at the end they go, "Oh, well, the pain's reduced. You're moving better, so we'll call it there." And then off you go back into the world in exactly the same place, just a little bit less pain. Whereas now I actually feel equipped to deal with approaching the world with my hip and know what, hey, if I do that, it's going to set it off. So let's not do that. Let's do it a different way, sort of thing. Um,
Yeah,
which is amazing. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. Was there a moment when you were going through this program that you felt like, oh, like this is actually working? Like, do you remember that having a moment of like, I, I actually don't have pain in my hip anymore?
Yeah, I think maybe like the 4 or 5 week mark, because the first like few weeks is all that kind of calming exercises and things like that. So it's a slower process, but it needs to having gone through it now, it actually needs to happen. So it feels a little bit frustrating because you're not seeing like a massive change in anything. But then once you get kind of through that first phase and you start getting into the second phase and you start moving and moving pain free, that's when it was, oh wow, this is actually starting to work. Like doing these little things that feel like not very much are actually having such a huge impact on how the hip feels when we're starting to do very basic like a box squat or little movements like that. It makes such a difference. And that for me was like, okay, I think we're on the right track here. We're just gonna I was saying before, like we're not going to go from 0 to 100. We're just going to follow the program properly, be very diligent, and see what the outcome is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was around that 4 to 5 week mark for me. Yeah,
That I feel like you bring up such an important point of like how it can feel really frustrating in the beginning and it can feel really slow, especially if you've already gone through things that like haven't worked. Um,
yeah,
and I feel like that's something that I usually have to educate, whether it's a virtual client or an in-person client. It's the same thing. It's like it's so easy to want to give up because you're like, I don't know, like yes, I'm learning, but like I don't know that I feel anything different in my body. And I usually tell people if you can hang on like 1 or 2 more weeks, it's like just around that bend. So I feel like that's so
yeah,
important to hear from somebody who's physically gone through it, that like, and again, now having gone through it, like you said, it was like, oh right, that did like that did have to happen that way. Because it can be hard when you're on the
yeah.
other side of it to understand that.
Oh yeah, exactly right. You're doing certain exercises like the rock backs, and you're like, this, I don't feel anything. It's not making any difference. But then you transfer that into like a box squat, and like, oh, this actually feels so much better. So you just have to be patient. You just have to be patient and follow the process, and yeah, it'll
Yeah,
all come together in the end.
for sure, for sure. Was there anything that surprised you about your either your body or the process? Like, was there anything that kind of shocked you going through this that you didn't expect?
I think like there was a little bit of hesitation because I'd tried so many different programs, uh, tried it with a couple of different physios, kind of really was at the end of my like option list that there was a little bit of hesitation of will this actually work? Um, and like going through it, I was starting to do a little bit more like loaded movements, use a little bit more weights, that sort of thing. And it was starting to feel okay. And then a few weeks ago, went for the first run back. I mean, it wasn't like running a 5 kilometer run or anything. It was very, how can you say, like planned, kind of interval style as we discussed. And it felt the best that my running has felt in years. I didn't, take off with a hesitation of is this going to hurt? Is this not going to hurt? I just went with an open mind, and it was, yeah, very surprising how there was basically no pain. There was no flare up afterwards. There was not even any soreness, other than muscular soreness from not having run for a while. But yeah, the actual hip joint and everything around it felt amazing. So I think for me that was really like I can really start to trust my body again and kind of take it that little next step further every single time, and yeah, just manage it from there.
Yeah.
So
And it's crazy to think like just 12 weeks ago, the where you were at and how
yeah,
far you've come, to going and taking runs and all of that. It's been pretty
yeah,
remarkable how far you've come. You've also
yeah.
put in
Like
the
12
work.
weeks ago. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm quite like if I'm doing a program, I'm following it to a T. Like I'm not deviating because for me it's so important. So yeah, putting in the hard work has definitely paid off. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, okay, so you're running. What else? Is there anything else compared to like when you started? Is there anything else that's changed for you where you're at right now?
Yeah, I guess it's just like being able to trust my hip to do the things that I want it to do. So a lot of like sideways loading, even just like a little bit heavier with lifting, like doing squats, doing deadlifts with a little bit more weight. I can start to actually trust it and do those movements with confidence, and not have to worry about that the next day I might not be able to get out of bed because my hip's so sore. Now it's like, oh, I can actually move normally after doing that kind of training, which is amazing because, yeah, even 12 weeks ago, I was very uncertain still about how my hip was moving and what it would feel like in the morning when I woke up, and then how that kind of played out through the day. So, yeah, just being able to actually trust it and know that if something does happen, that I'm not completely stuck on how to deal with a small pain or a little bit of discomfort. I have those tools to help me settle it back down again. So yeah, I just feel basically ready to tackle anything that my hip decides to throw at me.
That's amazing. I mean, that's the whole
Yeah,
goal is to get to that point. And I think it can, again, it can be so frustrating because I think a lot of people don't even realize that that is possible. They've been
yeah,
living with pain for so long that it just becomes the, well, this is just how it's going to be. And maybe somebody's even told them that. Like, I think a lot of times people have heard those words, like, there really isn't anything else we can do. And it
yeah.
doesn't have to be that way usually. So I
No,
think that's really
definitely
powerful.
not. Yeah, and like I guess I would just suggest just stick with it. It takes time. Like you have to be patient because it will happen. It'll get better. You just have to be patient and go through the motions.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, if you had any advice for people that were thinking about coming into the group program or working with me, or I guess anybody virtually, what would you tell them?
Definitely do it. 100%. Like don't second guess it because it was the best thing that I ever did. So yeah, having that community was probably one of the big factors in that, and being able to discuss with other people from all sorts of things. Like in our group discussion, we were talking about what's your hardest exercise at the moment to who's had a cortisone injection, how did that feel for you? And it was all quite similar responses. So it was nice to be able to talk to people from across the world because obviously like I live in Australia, so it was nice to talk to people the other side of the world with similar issues. So um,
You
yeah,
might be
definitely.
my most dedicated client because you joined us in the middle of the night for our calls.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would
Yeah.
get up at midnight, join the team call,
I mean,
but
that
it's
is
important to do those things.
dedication.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, definitely do it. And the virtual thing wasn't, there wasn't any need for any like manual therapy or anything like that I found anyway. I think there was enough exercises and the program that you use is really good. And you can change it, and you've basically got a direct line to yourself and the rest of the group. So you don't feel disconnected at all, actually. If anything, you're more connected because you're carrying the program on your phone, which is in your pocket. So you're always connected, which is great, which I think was a really good approach. And yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Amazing, amazing. That community aspect too, I feel like it carries its weight in gold because it
Oh,
basically
100%.
pulls you out of the Facebook and the Reddit forums and the
Yeah.
the internet can be a dark place sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's I think it's so important to have these conversations with other people, but sometimes you get into those bigger forums and like it's just not the same as actually being able to get on a Zoom call with a group of people from around the world and like just talk and support each other and celebrate wins and struggles, and it's completely different.
Yeah, exactly. And it shows you that you're not alone. You're not the only person dealing with a hip labral tear or impingement or pain or whatever. Like there's other people out there who are experiencing the same thing, which I found really great to kind of be able to learn other people's story and know that you're not alone through this process.
For sure. Well, you thrived in the program. I'm so happy to see how well you're doing right now. It's so exciting to get those messages still of like, I did a run. It felt so good. Like, nothing makes me happier than getting those messages. So I hope you will continue to send them.
Yeah,
But yeah,
definitely.
you did amazing. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to chat with us because I think hearing your story is so important for other women, to just realize that there is still hope out there. That's the number one thing I always want
Yeah,
to show people, and I feel
100%.
like your story and you sharing it absolutely helps with that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't know where I'd be if I hadn't come across your podcast. So, yeah, amazing.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you, and we will talk again soon, hopefully.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenna.
Sweet. Thank you.
Awesome. That was so good.
I think it stopped. I'm making sure it stopped.